Hi, and welcome to another video by Get It Done Home Repairs. Today we're going to talk about how to measure a broken spring for a garage door. Now these are the tension type springs, so there's three very important things that you need to know. One is you need to know the overall length of the spring itself. The next thing you need to know is you need to know the inside diameter in here, between this point and this point. We need to know the inside diameter. And the last thing we need to know is the thickness of the wire that makes up the spring itself. Now, obviously, if you have the spring off of the garage door, you can measure the length of it from here to here to be able to tell what spring you need. But if the spring is still on the door and it's broken, how do you determine what size spring you need to order? So we're going to talk about that. Now you can see here the spring is broken, obviously, and the reason we don't want to measure it on the door itself with the spring still on the non-broken spring, we don't want to measure the spring that's not broken, because when you measure the spring that's not broken, you're not going to get an accurate measurement, because as the spring is wound, it'll actually grow in length. So you may measure the spring while it's still on the garage door and the tension is still on it, and it may read 31, 32, whatever inches. So you can't measure the spring while it's on the door and get an accurate measurement. What you can do when the spring is broken on the door is you can get an accurate measurement of the spring that's broken. Now when the spring is on the door and it's broken, you're going to notice the spring has got a gap in between like this. And that's because when the spring is wound, it does grow that much longer as it's wound up on the door. As you can see, the distance between the two broken sections of spring, that's why it's important to measure each piece individually so you get the overall length is correct. Otherwise, you'll have it 2 or 3 inches too long. So what we need to do is to calculate what the size of the spring is when it's in the unwound position. And there's a couple of ways you can do it. One, you could take the spring off the door itself and measure the spring itself. The next way is you would just measure the two broken portions and calculate the size from that. And the way you would do that is you just take your measuring device, your ruler, you put it on the spring itself, and you're measuring just from the end of the spring right here to the end of the spring right here. You're not measuring the aluminum portion of it that's over here, and you're not measuring the other portion which is over here. You're just measuring the coils of the spring. So what we're going to do now is we're going to measure the coils of the spring. We'll get our measurement. And here we have it's 21 3/4 inches. So we're going to write down that 21 3/4 inches. Okay, next thing we're going to do is we're going to take that broken section of spring and we're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to measure the broken section of spring itself to get a size there as well. And as you can see here, it's 6 1/4 inches. So we're going to put down 6 1/4. We'll add the two of them together and it comes up 28 inches. The length of the spring is 28 inches. Now this one you can see is off of the garage door itself. And just to confirm that we are correct, as you can see, it's about 28 1/4. So in this case, we're going to wind up rounding it down. Okay, so it's 28 1/4. If it was 28 1/2, we would round it up. But in this case, we're going to round it down. We know the spring is 28 inches long. The next thing we need to do is we need to calculate how thick or how big the diameter is inside this spring right here. And the way you would do that is you take your measuring tape like this. Let's bring you in a little closer so you can see what I'm doing. Okay. So what we now have is we have the spring that's broken right here, and we need to determine the size right through here. Now the way you would do that, I'm going to switch this so you can watch what I'm doing here. You cannot put it like this, because as you can see, this piece right here is hitting up against the spring and is not getting the true measurement inside of it. What you want to do is you want to turn your measuring tape like this, put it in here like that, and then you would measure the inside like this. And as you can see, it's 2 inches on the inside. All right, so we know that now the inside diameter here is 2 inches. We're going to write that down so we have that. 2 inches. Okay, Next thing we need to know is we need to know the thickness of the wire, how thick this wire is right here. To determine the thickness of the wire, what we need to do is we need to calculate we're going to go back, we're going to count 20 coils on the spring back. We're going to go 20 coils back, and we're going to take a piece of paper, and we're going to stick a piece of paper in that 20th coil, and then we're going to measure the length of the coil, the spring itself from end to end on 20 coils. And then we're going to look at our formula, which I will put on the screen here, and we'll calculate the thickness of the wire. All right, so now what we're going to do, let's take our spring, and we're going to count back 20. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. This is our 20th coil right here. And now what we're going to do is we're going to take our piece of paper and stick our piece of paper in that 20th coil, just like that. Okay. Let's move that so you can see. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're going to come in here with our measuring tape here. We're going to put it up against our 20th piece of spring, or in this case, the piece of paper. We're going to measure from the 20th coil back to the first coil, and as you can see, it's 4 1/2 inches. So we know that the spring, the 20 coils of spring is 4 1/2. So we're going to write that down, 4 1/2. And now I'm going to put a chart on here. You can take a look at the chart, but if you look at the chart, it's going to say 20 coils of the spring at 4 1/2 inches in length is going to give me a size of 0.225 for the thickness of this spring right here. That tells you the thickness of the wire itself. So with those 3 measurements now, you should be able to go online and place the order for the new spring. Okay, so with the measurements that we have now, we know that the spring that we're going to be looking for, it's going to be 28 inches in length. It's going to be a 2-inch diameter inside, and we also know that the size of the wire is 0.225. And now when I took this other spring down off the garage, it tells you right here, 225. I can't read the rest of it. It looks like 28, 225 by 28. So we know that the spring is the correct spring. So now we're going to go online. We're going to place the order for it. Once the spring comes in, then we're going to go back into the garage and we'll put it back together. All right, make sure that you get the correct pieces of winding tool that they make for it. It goes in here. Rebar is not good because it doesn't fit exactly right. Make sure you get the proper tool for it. You don't want to get hurt while doing a job. I will put a chart on here so you can take a look at the chart and you can find out what size wire you need. For each one of these. I will also put a chart on here so that you can calculate how many revolutions you need to wind up this spring so that you get the correct tension on the door. All right, but I will put a link in there so you can take a look at it and see what it is, or I will put it in the video at some. Okay, once again, let me put those charts up for you so you can have an idea of the turns that you're going to need to do, as well as all the wire dimensions that you're going to need as well. After we get the new spring, we're going to go into the garage and then we're going to remove the old spring and replace it with the new one. Today we're going to be replacing the tension springs on the garage door. As you can see right up here, you can see where this spring here has broken and the other spring is not broken. So what we're going to do is you do change both of these springs in sets. You don't want to change one without changing the other. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about the tools we're going to use. You don't need a lot of tools, but this is the basic stuff that you're going to need. You're going to need a wrench, like a 9/16 wrench, a 3/8 wrench, a socket with either a 14 or a 9/16 on the end of it. You're going to need a couple of pairs of vice grips like this. And you may need a file, but we'll see how it goes. But the most important thing is that you need to have these tools to take the tension off of the spring that did not break. Don't use rebar, don't use a screwdriver, you're going to hurt yourself. These bars are fairly cheap, and a lot of times when you order the springs, you can order these bars with it at the same time. Some of the springs even come with the tools in it. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to come up underneath here, and we're going to pull the handle and release the automatic garage door opener. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to take a pair of pliers like this, and we're going to come over and we're going to lock the garage door in this position so it can't open up by accident. That'll keep the garage door from opening up, because when we put the new springs in and we start to put tension on the springs, it'll just naturally try to pull the garage door up. So if you put these in there, you lock it up on the left side, and I'm going to put one on the right side as well. It'll keep the door from going anyplace. Grab our wrench, the 3/8 wrench, and we're going to grab our two bars like this, and we're going to go up and we're going to release the tension on the door itself, on the spring I should say. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to come in here, we're going to take our bar, we're going to put it in the slot right here, and then we're going to release this set screw and this set screw here, and then we're going to slowly take the tension off of this spring. So let's do that. Keep your face away from these bars just in case a mishap happens and you don't get hit in the face with this bar when it comes up. You're going to keep tension on the spring, and then you're going to release this screw here first. I always do the one that's furthest back and more difficult to get to, and then we'll do this one right here. Hold tension on the tool, and then we'll release the spring. And we're going to let it come down. We're going to put our next bar in over here, and then we're going to lift up slightly on the bar. We're going to rotate this one down. Same thing here. Now when you get down to the end, you want to be careful, because if you let go of the rod, you see how it just fell out by itself? And we're just going to make sure we have it totally unwound, and we do. All right, so now the spring is unwound. We're going to come up here and we're going to loosen up these two screws right up here. They hold the springs together. So let's grab our 9/16 and we're going to take them apart. And now our spring here is loosened up, and this spring here is loosened up as well. Let's loosen up these two right here, and we'll slide that spring out. Grab our 3/8 wrench again, and this part here is still on the bar here, so we need to remove that. So we're just going to loosen this up here. Now remember, there's no tension on this spring because it's already broken, so we don't have to worry about any tension or any rotation. Loosen up our set screws. And now this one is loose as well. All right, next thing we're going to do is we're going to go over to this right side over here, and you see the drum that's on there with the cable on it. We're going to go over there and we're going to loosen that up as well with those two set screws. Okay, now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take this set screw here and this set screw here, and we're going to loosen those. We're not going to take them totally out. We're just going to remove them so that this pulley slides back and forth. Now you see how this cable goes up inside here? That's the way we're going to need to put it back in. It goes up through the back of the pulley, not through the front of the pulley. Okay, so now we're going to take off this right here, loosen it. Again, it's 3/8. Now this pulley is loose, and it should slide back and forth, which it does. Now we're going to tear it down here. We're going to take off this metal cable right here. We're just going to take it out, just like this. And we'll just leave it here for now because we're going to come back to this when we put it back together. All right, but this is loose now. We're going to go over to the other side, and let's do the same thing over there. Okay, we loosened up both screws. We're going to let her spin around. We're going to take that cable that's in here, and we're just going to slide it up and out. We're going to take this, just put it out of the way for now, so that doesn't interfere when we're working. And now this one is loose as well. All right, next thing we're going to do now is we're going to come up here, we're going to take the bar itself, and we're going to slide it to the one side. As you can see, it didn't slide because the spring itself is stuck on the pipe. So we're just going to loosen up the set screws just a little bit more so we can get it to slide a little better. Like this. And then we're going to slide it back this way. Now, all right, I just want to point something else out to you. You see right here where the screws, these screws, used to touch into this pipe right here? They actually caused a little burr in there. And that burr is now causing this not to slide back and forth. So let me grab a file. We're just going to file this down very slightly so we can slide the spring out of the way. All right, we're just going to file it just a little bit, just to get the burrs out. Just so enough so that we can slide the spring back like this. And there, we're good. But we're going to file it just a little bit anyway. See these little burrs right in here? That'll cause it to stick a little bit. Okay, we're going to slide the spring past to make sure it passes this one okay, which it does. Now we're going to go back over to the other side, and we'll pull the spring off on this side over here. And slide the bar slightly to the right, just like that. And then we'll take our pulley off. Remember the way you got the pulley off, the set screws are to the inside, okay? Now we're going to pull our spring back over here. Hold the bar with your one hand, and we'll slide the spring off. Okay, we'll just leave our bar right like that. Let's take our spring and put it down on the floor. This out here as well. Springs are color coded. This one is a red spring, a red dot on here. This one goes, if you're standing looking at the door from the inside, it's on the left side. So we're going to take this spring, which is our old one. We're going to take our red colored spring, and we're going to put this back on. As you can see, this one is black, so we know that's the right side. Okay, so let's put this back up there, and we'll wrap it up. Now we'll take our spring and put it back on the same way. Remember, this was to the inside, so that's the way we're going to do it. Put it on here, like this. And then we're going to feed it back onto the tube. Then we're going to take our gear that we previously took off, put it on here, like this. Now remember the set screws at the inside, right? Then we're going to take this, and we're going to put it right back up through here. Slide it very slowly. You don't want it to fall on the other side. Okay, let's go to the other side. All right, now we're just going to grab the bar again. We're going to slide it to the left just so we clear this end over here. Okay, just till we clear. And then we're going to slide our pulley off. Remember how it came off with the set screws to the inside. And now we're going to pull this off. Okay, let's grab the other spring. Remember we talked about the different coloring on the spring. You can see that this one now is black. So that's the color we need to put on this side of the door. So let me grab my black spring and let's put it on. Let's take this, get the spring out of our, this cable out of our way here. And we're going to take our spring and we're going to slide it on. Let's release these set screws up here so they don't interfere with the bar. Okay. We're going to hold the pipe with one hand and we're going to slide the spring onto the bar. Slide the spring down. Then we're going to take our pulley that we previously took off. We're going to reattach that, put it on. Set screws to the inside, and now we're going to put this bar back up into this top piece here. Okay. Now we want to center this bar. You want to make sure that you have the same distance sticking out here that you have sticking out on the other side. All right, so that, we're going to check that to make sure that's okay. But for now, let's go back and put the springs back together. Okay, now we made sure that that we have the bar is equal on that side and the equal on this side over here. So now we're going to take our bearing, we're going to slide this here, we're going to pull our springs together. Now there's only one bearing and it goes inside the spring right here. There's like a little cutout area that it goes into. It fits in there like this. Okay, then we'll take our springs and we're going to bring them together like this and like this. Now we're going to take our screws and put them back in here. Like I said, you can use your old screws over again. You don't need to replace them. Center is now done. Let's go over here and we're going to start to wind everything back together then. But we're going to go to the drum on the left side first and we're going to put that cable back on there. So let's get over on the left side. Okay, so now we're ready to put our drums back on here. So let's take our cable that we previously took out. We're going to take our cable and we're going to put it up inside here where it came out. We're going to put it in here just like that. And then we're going to rotate the drum. Remember this, the wire was in the back. So we're going to rotate it around like this, making sure it goes in the groove, this groove right here. And then we're going to take it, bring it in here. Make sure the slack is off of the cable and it's not loose. Just bring it so it's taut. We're going to bring our drum over to the side here. And now we're going to tighten up our set screws right here. Once they touch the rod, we're going to turn it we're going to tighten it between 1/4 of a turn and 1/2 of a turn to lock it in place. Make sure that the cable has no slack in it, and then we're going to tighten up these set screws right here. Same thing here. Okay, and now that one is tight. Now the next thing we're going to do, before we go to the other side, we're going to take a pair of channel locks or vice grips. We're going to bring it up here and we're going to put it on the bar itself to keep the bar from rotating back. So we're going to turn it, we're going to lock it like that, and it's locked up against the wall, the header of the garage door, so that it doesn't rotate. All right, so let's go on the other side and we'll put that drum on the other side. Okay, so we're going to take our drum out again. We're going to take our cable, lift our cable up, and it goes right in here, just like this. Okay? And now remember, it was not this direction, it was the other direction, this way. We're just going to wind the cable in its groove, just like that. Make sure it's not interfering with anything. Bring our pulley over, hold it so that there's no slack in the cable whatsoever. And then again, we're going to tighten up our set screws on the top and in the back. Okay. All right, let's go to the middle and we'll wind that spring. Okay, now we're ready to start winding our spring. So we're just going to turn our spring until there's no more slack in it. We're going to take our tools, put our tool in here like this. And now remember, when we released the tension on it, we counted it was, I think it was like 31 turns that we had. Now if you look on a chart, which I will put on here, it depending on the height of the door is how many turns you'll need to put on here. This particular one takes 31 revolutions, or I should say 31 quarter revolutions. We're not doing one whole rotation, we're doing a quarter at a time, but we're doing 31 quarters. So let's start on that. Put it in here, and we're going to rotate it 31 times. Okay, that's 31 revolutions. Now we have our bar wedged up the door. We're going to bring these set screws in and we're going to bring them in and we're going to tighten them in until we touch it, and then we're going to go between a quarter and a half inch a revolution. Next thing we're going to do is we need to get that bar out of there, and the way we're going to do that is we'll put this rod in here and we'll just lift up slightly just to take the tension off of it, and then we can take it out. Now when you let this bar go, be very careful, just in case you didn't tighten it too tight, be aware that there may be come down. All right, so let's let this go very easy, and we'll take the bar out, and this one is done. Let's go to the other side, and let's wind that one up. Okay, so now let's wind this spring up. Remember, it's 31 revolutions, so that's what we're going to do. We take the tension off of the spring first, and now we'll put our tool in here, and we're going to turn it 31 times. Okay, now that we have our 31, we're going to tighten up these set screws here. We're going to snug them down just till they touch. And then we're going to go between a quarter and a half revolution tighter. Now we're going to take our other tool, put it in here, just lift up slightly, and again let it go easy. Okay? All right, let's take off our vice grips and let's test it to make sure it works. All right, let's take the vice grips off. We took our vice grip off that was up on the top of the bar, up on top there, that's off. Now we're taking these off. Now be prepared, just in case the door has too much tension on it. Sometimes when you remove the vice grips, it may come flying up, so be prepared just in case. Okay, our vice grips off. And now we're just going to test it. Lift the door up very gently, because once it becomes about this high, it may just take off and fly out of your hand, so be prepared just in case, because you may have to add tension or reduce tension. All right, so let's grab it and see what happens. Oh, that looks good. That's perfect. All right, so now let's lower it back down. we'll reconnect our garage door opener, and we'll test it with the opener then. Okay, now one thing I want to mention to you is sometimes, even though it's roughly about 31 revolutions to get the tension onto the preload the door so we can lift it up, sometimes you may have to increase it or decrease it. If the door goes up too fast, then you just go up there with the rods, you put the rods in the door, you release the tension. I would just remove 1 or 2 of the revolutions that you've done, which is a quarter of a revolution. Remove 1 or 2 on the right side, lock it in place, come over to the left side, do the exact same thing on the left side, and just to see how the tension is. But that's it, job is done. All right, as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.